What is going on, you guys? It's your boy, the autistic automaton here, and we are back with episode 104 of the video game therapy series. I'm recording this one at a bit of a different time during the day. I generally do these in the evenings, like post 6 p.m. my time. But I'm trying this one kind of in the morning after breakfast and after kind of all my little morning routine, which isn't really much. But yeah, I don't know if that has an effect on my abstract abilities to think or my ability or propensity to ramble for 50 plus minutes. But I guess we shall see. I was thinking a bit about just as I often do, ruminating on society's influence and just how people act, because it's just, and I realize that a lot of these ruminations kind of seem pointless, and then they are pointless. I'm not saying that there is some kind of grand plan with this, but I think there's also not really a way to justify anything. Like justifying, I suppose, something like an act or a piece of work like this as pointless. I think you'd also render anything else pointless under the same. I guess if you reduce the logic enough to down to its constituent parts, anything can kind of seem pointless, even jobs that net you money or anything like that. I think justifying those as purposeful, whereas this is being pointless, because I realize that you could accuse just like quit wasting your time, like ruminating on things and thinking and yapping to yourself. Do something like productive. Whereas I would argue that this is as productive as time could be, even compared to the other things I could be doing. Now, I suppose if I only measured productivity through, I guess, dollars netted, then yes, it's unproductive, but then so would be like exercising. It doesn't net me any dollars. Now, is that to say you should bring like a camcorder into your weight room to try and, get a gym following or something? I don't know. But I'd say no, but I would argue that just because of, there's a lack of self-reflective rumination that's just kind of pervasive in our culture. It's never, it's not really an encouraged thing to run around and think about yourself and be critical of things. And that's often what I do in these videos is I'm kind of trying to bash, not trying to bash things, but I bash on things. And I wrote myself onto different things and try to reason my way into or out of certain behaviors and ideologies and things. Which I don't think is any more of a waste of time than anything anyone else is doing at this time of day. So yes, it's 10 a.m. during a work day, and I am playing Minecraft talking to myself. So go fuck yourself. Anyway, I'm thinking about I guess culture and masculinity, and I'm going to be reductive here in my ruminations on masculinity. I really hope this doesn't come across as some red pillars thing where I'm trying to be some, I don't know, I guess pro-man or anti-feminist or something like that. I hope that's not the case. I was just interesting to me because as a male, as someone I strongly identifies as a male, I think the overarching or a big part of that is the influence of testosterone on our behavior. And I'm not here to say that testosterone is wholly good. There's certainly a lot of downsides that come with testosterone. As like the prevailing, I'll say, chemical that drives, I'll say, male-defined behavior. But it's just interesting to see how, I guess, the effects of testosterone are seen on behavior. So, for example, it's no surprise that, gearheads and people that are on roids have an excess of testosterone, and as a result, they're very aggressive. They obviously lift a lot of weight. They're strong. They're kind of always yelling. And there's just a certain vibe that you get with people that are, with testosterone is in abundance, which people, gearheads people that are, but even the ones that aren't, that just have high testosterone in general, they're seen, there's a lot of energy there. And I think part of the bad that comes with that is again, like, I guess, over aggressiveness or just being, you're seen as a wacko if you're running on arguing, but there's no real place for like an excess of testosterone, let's say in corporate America, right? I can't bust into my job at, some SaaS company and be flipping tables and screaming at somebody, which where I'd say is like in a gym setting, if you're lifting weights, that's like perfectly appropriate. You'd almost encourage that in some levels. And maybe not. I think some people in the gym like this little quiet, soft environment. But I think that also kind of defeats the purpose. I think part of what the gym even is a battle against yourself. And if you're not like fighting that with high intensity, you can't like kind of 60%. That kind of pisses me off just about. And I'm going to ramble on about a little bit tangential here, just because this is a topic that that is I guess more personal to me than other topics per se. Only because I was a big gym head for a while. But like exercise, it's like I said, if walking is exercise to you, you should either be disabled or you're out of shape. And even then, like light exercise, like things I would say below 75% is you're leaving most of what exercise offers you on the table. Meaning, I argue that like very high intensity exercise, like 90+%, which I guess most people don't even know what 100% of their max is. They've never like maxed out, and they never, not to say that like everybody should max out all the time, but like if you've never put as much weight as you can possibly put on a bar and threw it on your back and felt like you were going to die under the bar, I don't think there's still more you can get out of exercise. I think there's a lot. It clears the mind when you have to forget about everything, because there's literally 400 pounds on your back or whatever, and you're gonna fall over. You're gonna get stapled to the ground if you can't get up. There's a certain, I don't know, I guess power that has that a lot of people don't ever tap into, and part of the result of even wanting to do that is you kind of have to let testosterone lead the party here. So you can't go into a gym and kind of be in your own head. I think part of what intense exercise, and athletes, I think, know this. If you ask most athletes, probably most athletes are fucking stupid. You ever talk to them, there's nothing going on in their head, because you almost need that, right? I think these like high intellectual athletes often don't go very far, because there's a clear separation between what your body performing at its best and your mind performing at its best. And often they can get in each other's way. Your mind can certainly get in the way of your body. In the same way, like if you're horny as fuck, you're not going to be able to have a decent intellectual argument. Like, so your body's kind of getting in the way of your mind there. So in the same way, I think there's people that aren't able to kind of, and not to say disassociate, but to really let I'll say even hormones in their body kind of really take over the show. And be kind of just a vessel for their testosterone for a while. And part of what that is getting really aggressive. I guess, not being loud in some ways. You can still do it in a respectful way, but, getting angry. I think it's too easy to vilify and see it as a problem. It's like, oh, you're angry, there's something wrong with you. It's like, I don't think, no, there's not. Being angry, I think, is a very normal thing. And even just like being physically aggressive is a normal thing. Like it is kind of priced into not even our genetics, but even our society. Like I'm not here to say that like we need war and like war, but war is kind of an inevitable thing. It's been in physical violence at that. It's not even like intellectual war. We just need to like fire little robots at each other. I just mean people like beating the shit out of each other is kind of a normal thing, and that's not accepted anywhere in society besides a boxing ring, even, because even like most commercial gyms, if you're in there like screaming and slapping and, I guess being any kind of physical violence at all, you're going to get launched out of there. Even like at a bar fight now, if you get in a bar fight, you get charged with assault. The two of you spend the night in prison, whereas you should just beat the shit out of each other and you'd go home and you almost want to beat the shit out of you. That's why I think even that movie Fight Club, which I've only seen once, so maybe I should watch it again to really get a thing. But I think that even kind of spoke to that, propensity or that need for, I guess the males, I'll say, and again, I'm being very generalized here in terms of the male to female dynamic. I don't mean to say that there's, we need to like, everything needs to be about the male and everything needs to, society needs to be built around people beating the shit out of each other. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying if you make it completely unacceptable to ever use any kind of physical violence, you can get these explosions that seem like they come out of nowhere. I think a lot of, I'll even kind of point to school shootings as like this outing of like, there's no acceptable place to be like physically aggressive, right? Besides like sport would be good, but most people don't even play sports beyond high school level. And even that, it's like, it's kind of resigned for like the best and best of athletes. But what if you're not like the greatest athlete ever and you can't make it to college or past college, then you're kind of in this prime time of your testosterone. You kind of just have to ignore these strong impulses to kind of spar a little bit. Whereas I think back when things were more atomized in terms of you were restricted to your local geographies. Even like what nowadays would be very average or kind of shitty athletes are still kind of competing in sport in some way, shape, or form, and kind of getting this physical aggression out. And I was, and the other argument would be then, well, like then all kind of this over testosterone, it's just bad. We should kind of ignore or sedate testosterone. But testosterone also like plays a huge role in like motivation to do things. Like businesses and other things aren't built and grown in a void of testosterone, right? You can't just be like passive and like have any kind of like ambition. There's a huge these are very correlated things, testosterone and ambition. And I'd say it's just restricted to the males. I think females also, you also get testosterone as a female. It's not like you don't get it. And maybe we need cat fights too. I'm not saying there needs to be this rejection of anything that appears or could be masculine in any way. I just think there's a lot that we've rejected about that, and it just feels strange that there's no accepted outlet for males to be physically aggressive. Again, besides like literally being an MMA fighter or being high up in your sport. Because again, if you're in your mid late 20s or 30s or something, and you are you're not like a great athlete, you can't go into your local gym and start throwing weights around. You're going to get thrown out, or people are going to you're going to have problems, and people are not going to be happy with you being physically aggressive. And I guess besides you renting out your own gym or buying a punching bag for your garage and getting weird looks from your wife or whatever, your roommate, there's not really a great outlet for you to go run around, because I feel like there just needs to be you need to be able to beat the shit out of something, physically. There needs to be some kind of physical, like, forget what my mind is telling me, forget the whole, kind of remove this intellectualization from the equation and let your body kind of release this, anger. Otherwise you get a lot of other issues, I think, that come from that. I think a lot of mental problems and disorders and just kind of inequalities within the mind originate from it's like referred pain, which physiologically is when, like, let's say like your shoulder hurts, but it's not really your shoulder that's the problem. I mean, most people would look at the shoulder and say, "Oh, there's something wrong with my shoulder." Referred pain would be that maybe there's like a problem with your lat or with your trap or somewhere other. A different part of your body is causing pain in your shoulder, and your shoulder is just like the result of that. And what I'm arguing is in a similar vein, maybe, and not a perfect analogy, but close enough. Mental anguish of some kind, or some mental instability on in some level, and again, perhaps a lack of an outlet for your testosterone and things that go through that are common in the male's physiology, cause other problems. And while you might be looking at maybe like a depressive episode or something like that, purely through the lens of, okay, what makes this person depressed? Well, again, it might have nothing to do with that. It might have something to do with the fact that there's no outlet for their anger. Maybe there's an angry person. I've seen that a lot, of people that are, and I said before that I think of myself as, I hope I come across at least somewhat even keel in these videos, but generally I can, as something I care about, I can get loud, and I think I am at some baseline a more angry person than most. I think most people are more level-headed than me. And when I was a kid, I would get angry about stuff all the time. And I don't think it's like this horrible thing that I need to be medicated for the time. I think some certain part of it is a natural human thing, like to be angry sometimes. I think that's totally normal. To have, to at least have that inside of you somewhere. It's not like we should ignore, angry at all times is always bad. There's never an excuse to be angry or to be upset. I think that's fine. And I think sometimes that does require the need for a physical outlet of some kind. It doesn't have to be another person per se. And sports is obviously, I think, a great outlet for that. And I think that's why people like to do sports. And that's why I like doing them. It's because there was this physical outlet where it was okay to, like, in football, it was okay to get angry, grit your teeth, and try to kill this guy. Not that you were going to. You're wearing pads and stuff, but there was a certain power to that. And I think, especially if you're always kind of suppressing your inner instincts, it almost seems strange. And even clinically, it's like, well, this person is aggressive. Seems to be a problem. And I don't view it as that. And it's just, I think it's taking the effects of testosterone out of context can lead to like this very sterile kind of clinical look of aggressive behavior and be like, well, this person's obviously suffering from a psychotic depressive episode and needs medication immediately. It's like, I think they're just a dude that wants to beat something up because they're testosterone, they're not fueling this, right? Whereas the other argument, people will just, get rid of the testosterone, make them, fat and tired. And, that way they're like, there's no need for that. Which I think is kind of a wrong solution, is to just like remove testosterone from the equation. I think there needs to be a certain balance. And obviously there's all a balance to this. I'm not saying we should let, give dudes free rein to run around and beat people up all the time. Obviously that's not what I'm saying. But I think, making it overly clinical and just like giving people pills to like kind of wipe away their testosterone, their impulses of aggression, as it's just like always a bad thing. It's never okay to be aggressive. Unless you're like a football player or something. I think it's normal for everybody to be aggressive, male and female even, because females also have testosterone. In the same way, males also have some estrogen in their system. It's okay for them to have feminine sides. It's okay for that to happen, but it's not like femininity is always okay. It's always all right to be submissive and passive, and it's never okay to be, the aggressive thing. Which is where I would say a lot of, I guess my beef with a lot of feminism comes into play. And it's not to say that it's almost like I don't really know what feminism is arguing for. And I don't mean like it's, I mean, Rob, it was obviously they just want equality. I understand that. But is it the promotion of femininity, or is it the is it the allowment of females to be masculine? Because you almost see like girl bossing. Girl bossing is females being masculine, is it not? I mean, I think the traits of this quote unquote girl boss, and again, you can let your own mental picture paint that. I won't spell it out in detail, and I don't really have strong opinions either way per se, but I do think there should be at least a distinction between promoting feminine values, which again are different. It's beauty, elegance, passivity, and then there's some of those things are good, and some of those things are bad. It's not always good to be passive and subjugate yourself to whatever someone else is doing. Or is femininity or feminism the promotion of masculine values or the assignment of masculine values to females? Or is it females being aggressive and winning and defending and conquering and, providing for people? Is that feminism? I don't really know what, I guess, depending on what kind of feminist you are. So I think it's difficult for me to call myself one way or the other because I don't really know what I'm siding for here. Obviously I think equality is a big part of it, and there should be some amount of equality, but there's also some amount of inequality that's innate in humans. I don't think everything is always equal. Like people are of different heights. People are different heights. Not everyone is 6'5". It's simple. I'm not saying that everyone needs to be 6'5", or we should treat people who are 5'8" like 6'5". There are fundamental inequalities in humans, and I think that's just a belief that, like it or not, people are not the same. And that's good. Not everyone can be the same. People should be different. That's fine. We can celebrate differences, but we also can't pretend like they don't exist. You also can't pretend like there's not preference. Like a basketball team, I would like people who are tall. I don't want a basketball team full of short people. And again, there's nothing wrong with. There's a context in which being short is good. Maybe if it was a gymnast team, I'd probably want people who are short. It's just there's different parts to this. There's a balance, but I think pretending that it's good to have a basketball team full of short people, or like, I'll say like vertically diverse or whatever you want to say is good. I think is silly. I think there are inequalities. Sometimes being tall is better. Sometimes it's worse. And in the context of a basketball team, it's better to be tall. That shouldn't be like a heretical thing to say. So in a similar vein, like with masculinity, I think masculinity and femininity are different. And there are times where it is better to be masculine, and there are times where it's better to be feminine. I don't know that it's not always better to be masculine or always better to be feminine, and I don't think we should stomp out either one. So in the same way, if I'm arguing for like, I'll say like the promotion of, this like aggressiveness sometimes on behalf of masculinity and like the effect of the testosterone hormone in our body and other stuff too, not just testosterone. But I'm kind of using that as the scapegoat here. I'm not saying that we should stomp out all amount. I think there's a certain yin yang with both of them. Femininity and masculinity have to coexist in some sense. So I worry, I suppose, on the sterility of the world just because we promote stability so much. Stability is generally again, you can argue this, I suppose, if you're an epistemologist, it is generally a feminine trait. I suppose the femininity complex historically has promoted state stability, safety, protection, different these as well as submissiveness, kind of beauty and peace. Those have been largely feminine characteristics, which again, there's a lot of places where that is precisely what is needed. Not to say that's always needed there. Sometimes there needs to be kind of a more masculine approaches to things. And again, I'm just kind of deciding on. I think at this point there's not a great outlet for, I suppose, overtly masculine or testosterone-driven, not even feelings, but it's just like bodily impulses. And again, this is where I think a lot of, I suppose, kind of atomized or really isolated young men resonate with that a lot. They watch Fight Club, they watch other stuff like Wolf of Wall Street or something, and they kind of get this fire, and they're like, well, this finally someone's kind of acknowledging the fact that like aggression and these exist, and these aren't wholly bad things. These people are celebrated in the movie, and that's why it seems to be strange that people like that they like that. But I get it. I understand that there's not a whole lot of celebration, whereas in the Roman times, I think it was the other way around. Like we would celebrate, somebody, the duels and sparring and somebody physically besting the other person. And we celebrate that in sports too. But it's like 400 people there that play professional sports. No one else does. There's millions of people that don't at all. Whereas I think there's a lot of punishment if you're going to act like a football player and not be a professional football player. Like I suppose if there was a lineman, who, fucking beat the shit out of somebody at some bar in Florida, you're like, well, he's a football player, but we kind of expected that, but if I go do it and beat somebody, break somebody's nose, they're like, well, this person is a threat to society. They're too aggressive. It's like, well, I'm not a professional athlete. That's the difference. I still have impulses. I mean, it's the same chemical that we're deifying this lineman for that I am. And it's the extreme side of the argument is that it's all bad, and the lineman should be in jail, same as you. Which I would push back again too. I just think there's, in general now, there's no, I suppose the feminine value of stability and passivity and peace over aggression is all good. Whereas historically we've seen the masculinity has to go somewhere, right? And I suppose sedating it has been is a strategy, I suppose, but I don't know that will wholly work because there's a lot of power in that all the drugs in the world won't overcome. So I don't know. I view it as kind of an issue that it's seen as overly problematic to have any kind of really masculine impulses, like if going into a gym and flipping tables or something. This person's like, well, he's insane. This guy is crazy. I don't think it's that crazy, right? I don't think it's that crazy to like as a male with testosterone, even as a female. Sometimes I don't know what it's like to have testosterone as a female, but sometimes you get the urge to punch somebody in the face, and obviously the most time you don't have to do it, and we shouldn't encourage necessarily that behavior. But the fact that like we couldn't acknowledge the fact that I want to punch somebody in the face sometimes, I think that's normal. I don't know that it's normal to completely to write that off. The other interesting part that I think this is actually probably the most interesting part of this whole thing, and I'm just kind of going to draw a line here between two things, and this may or may not be related, but I think the increase in almost like ironic humor, whereas in the past, if you were aggressive and you had the need to argue with somebody or something like that, you could scream and you could argue and you could fight, and it would, you go home at the end of the day, it'd be all right. And maybe again, there's varying levels of truth to that, I suppose, depending on your knowledge of history and context and where you are and whatnot. But I think with males a lot, there's a huge shift towards like almost like not even like ironic humor, because that's part of it, but like an ironic life. Like nothing you can't take anything serious, because the moment you take anything serious and you get really serious about something, you start yelling, or you're just like talking loud and you're arguing, which are all like no-nos. Like you can't just run around. I can't be at a breakfast somewhere and be like, I'm going to fucking rip your head up. Like you can't, there's no amount of that. You have to like be civil and quiet and very respectful, which I think aren't really masculine things. I think some impulse sometimes, if you really are fired up about something, is rip the guy's head off, and scream at him until you're red in the face and kind of get that out. You need that to relieve out of your system. There's other ways of doing that. But now it's like, in order to curb that, you're just kind of ironic with everything, with your humor, with the way you approach everything. Like you won't talk about any serious subjects. You'll just kind of be ironic all the time, because there's not really a healthy outlet for, I'll say, just like pure men aggression. So you have to kind of resort to this ironic mode of being, where arguments about politics or sports, what used to be just like red in the face arguing, is now like ironic, right? Or as a joke. Everything's kind of a joke. And I think I partially am saying this because I think it's part of what I've kind of fallen into. Is it's not, you can't really take anything serious, otherwise you're I suppose you're damned to fall victim to your impulses and wanting to kind of scream and yell. And I've seen it sometimes in these videos where I've ranted about something and I've gotten red in the face. Good thing I'm by myself and I'm arguing about, there's nobody else that's going to call the cops on me and like get me arrested for screaming at them or something. And I haven't really screamed on these videos per se, but I've certainly been fired up more times than sometimes. But I think that also kind of reflects itself in this like overly ironic mode of being, where that is, I guess, more prevalent now than it may have been historically. I don't know. That's just a theory of mine. I don't know. I just think there might be some correlation there between the level or the propensity of things to be ironic with some outlet of masculinity and being serious, because you can't really, if you take it serious, you're going to be pissed off about it, right? If I really took all these political issues really serious, not that I would care anyway because it has no bearing, but even like local political issues or something, I can either take it serious and march down to the guy's house and want to beat the shit out of him, or I just kind of, it's all kind of a joke. It doesn't really matter anyway, which I think is the easier way to be, in a way that's not going to put you in a mental hospital or a prison somewhere. So I don't know. And in that sense, I do kind of am defending people in those. And I understand why people, it frustrates me on sometimes people are like, well, I would never understand why anyone would do something like this, why someone would, have that much anger. It's like, I totally understand. Are you kidding me? Like it makes 100% sense why somebody would be so angry, as to beat somebody up, or not defending, murders or something, but like, if you're someone who grew up in poverty and everything is taken from you all the time, and then you go out and rob the guy, and stick him up or something, and you don't kill him, but you scare him a little bit. People are like, well, I don't see why he would ever. I could see that. Not that I would do it, but like the fact that I couldn't possibly imagine, myself committing a crime like that. What do you mean? Of course I could. I don't do it because I let, I think I have my wits about me, and generally I'm okay enough to not have to resort to that kind of behavior. But I think people don't, like, if you're unable to even comprehend the possibility of somebody doing, what on paper and out of context seems like an atrocious, like you went in his house with a gun and robbed him, or like, and I'm assuming here it's like a, some poverty-stricken person versus like, politician or something he's robbing. I could see that 100%, right? Like the fact that I don't, what do you mean you can't believe that someone would possibly do that? I could see that. I could see myself doing it. It's not like, and I haven't, but I won't, and I won't probably. But I could see it. I think it's stupid to be like, well, I would never see it. So I don't know. Anyway, I had that was a whole rant on masculinity as a thing, just because I think it's interesting to see the trade-offs over time, how things result in things. Even like revolutions, people are angry with stuff, and I know that's like, we can critique like, the methods under which people go about relieving their anger, whether that be school shootings or fighting or, but I think it's not the natural mode of a male to like, sit in a quiet classroom all day and take orders from somebody. It's like, there's some amount of like autonomy that even little kids know. I mean, most kids, not to say that, kids shouldn't put it aside, but, if you ever spent time in a classroom with young kids, you can see impulses at full display. And then the fact that like they just need to be trained out of it, or you just need to beat it out of them that they have to be submissive. I think it's the wrong approach. You really want to beat it out of kids to like never, like that all their natural impulses are bad and they should just listen to whatever anyone. It's like, no, I think there's a certain like kind of fucked powers that kids have innately because they just question things. It's like, well, why do we do this? Why do I, some kids like, why do I pay taxes? And then it was like, well, everyone pays taxes. And he's like, well, why though? Like, is there? I'm like, well, you can't answer that. You can't answer that question. Well, because we need the society to run. It's like, well, there was other societies that didn't have, it's like, there's like arguments that this is not about taxes, by the way. This is just more about a kid's natural propensity to question things and kind of ask hard questions and to reject authority. It's not like, there's a lot of kids that you just kind of saw as like these shithead kids that were like, fuck the teacher or whatever. And if you were a good kid, you're like, why are these kids being disruptive? But there's a certain amount of that I think is very normal. And I don't think it's good to completely remove, like those impulses, or at least not to analyze them. I think it's a fair question to at least ask, why are these kids like so abrasive to, authority? Is there something to there? Do they have a point of some kind? I think these are fair questions to ask. And things to entertain, that I don't know that ignoring them or treating them with contempt is the way to do it. At the very least, it's an interesting thing. But I'll talk about something else. This is something else I suppose that is at least mildly interesting to me. Is an ingrained, I'll say, like genetic predisposition for deifying something. So I think there's a strong and a good argument at that to believe that genetically we have some predisposition to believe in a higher power of some kind. Now, if that manifests itself as like a regular contemporary religion or historical religion or something that is, overtly religious, that's one thing. And I think that's kind of obvious. People can see that. But it's another to then people that then kind of deify science. Because I think people deify science often without realizing it. They kind of view it as this like inalienable thing and this truth that is like this absolute truth, when it's the same deification of God. Like people also viewed Christianity in that way. And yeah, they were stupider. I suppose that's like one argument. It's like, well, science is more intelligent than God. I understand that, but you boil any, scientific conclusion down far enough, you're more or less believing in some higher power anyway. And now often there's less logical, like, complete cognitive dissonance you have to believe. There's more objectivity to it. I'm not saying that, I'm not arguing that science is less right than, Buddhism or Christianity or Taoism or something. I'm not arguing that at all. But to act like it's like this supreme, unquestionable thing, and like because science said so, or I believe in science, isn't flawed logic the same as like I believe in God is, I think you're silly. So yeah, I think it is interesting to then conclude then there is some kind of ingrained need for humans to believe in some kind of higher power, whether that be like just God outright, or a Christian God, or a pagan God, or a Buddhist God, or a Chinese God of some kind. I don't know. Or that be like the God of science or the God of technological progress. There are all these like deities in which we worship. And I'd even be curious to see where, I guess, outright atheists would position themselves on this. And if you dug down deep enough into their belief system, if you wouldn't find some deification of something. And oftentimes that is science. And because science is often not reasonably questioned deep enough to espouse this like, underlying kind of not atheistic or agnostic view on things, or sometimes it's like a technological God of some kind. then I think it's interesting, and I think very probable that even atheists who claim to believe in no God have some deification of something, and that may well be genetic. So then, if it is genetic, then we could you might make the argument that we could overcome this genetic in the same way we'd overcome, I don't know, like a genetic predisposition for typhoid disease or cancer or something like that. Which I also think is kind of a questionable conclusion, as if it's possible to remove the genetic code, so to speak, to believe in some kind of higher power, or to exist wholly without any kind of belief system, which is a more interesting way to look at a brain, I suppose, if it's a neural network with some kind of inbuilt mechanism to deify something, whether that be a love of nature, because even any society of any kind, even individuals have all had some kind of deification of something. Again, if you contextualize it and kind of remove and abstract it enough, oftentimes sometimes they don't call them God, they call them certain principles of things, and even in science, physicists would, constants, right? These are almost gods in some way. Why are the constants the way that they are? Well, we just measure them that way. Well, okay, but why? How do you know that they don't change over time? Is the speed of light change? I even look at the measurements of the speed of light. They have kind of altered. It's kind of fluctuated a little bit. And so what's to say there's not almost a constant beyond that, or an equation beyond that governs these small changes in the speed of light? I don't know. Now the physical, well, it's simple. It's a constant by definition. And it's okay, well, by our definition, right? And it's like a similar argument to be well, God is real by our definition. Of course it is. Well, by our definition, which we are obviously very fallible, gullible things. What makes you think we didn't just make this up, for comfort? And all of it is really just some way to deal with, I guess, the anxieties of life and of strife. And I think science then has no real difference then from other religions. They function in a lot of the same ways, where it's some kind of comfort to deal with the unknown. And science at least has this veneer of continual evolution and progress, whereas the Bible is not being rewritten every 3 years, with new things, whereas science comes out with new stuff, and there's kind of this things change, and that's part of the scientific process. But I think to view it as any less of to view it in a completely different light as other, I suppose, religious sacraments, I think is a flawed, but yet it's still an interesting paradigm. It's more effective, I suppose, and more, I'll say, even accurate or truthful than some objectively religious thing or spiritual thing, even if it's not religious. But I don't know that it's of any kind of cosmic truth in that sense. Any more than pursuing some kind of vague sense of wisdom. Which, I mean, what's wisdom? Who's wise really, or what is wisdom to the wise? I don't know. Those could be completely opposite things depending on context, really. So I don't know. There's an absolute wisdom. Just saying that there's no necessarily absolute truth. There's truths that are useful to us, and maybe that's what wisdom. That's kind of one way I define wisdom is a helpful truth. Wisdom should make you stronger, more capable in some way. Whether or not the truth of it is relative to its how much it helps you. Whereas the speed of light is a very wise thing to believe in because it helps us do a lot of calculations, and they're and again, they are accurate and helpful and give us good abstractions and allow us to glean more information. But if the speed of light just gave us a bunch of if it was a randomization, if that was the constant, was a random number generator, it wouldn't be very helpful. So therefore it wouldn't be much wise, and therefore it would be false. But I don't know that we can measure any sense of truth from either of those, other than the fact that we know the speed of light helps us. It being a constant helps us, whereas assuming it's not wouldn't. So I don't know. It's interesting, at least to look at it in that way, just because that's, I suppose, the heretical way to look at it. I suppose if you're a domestic terrorist like me or something, but whatever. That was a joke, by the way. Let's see. I saw something that really pissed me off. Actually, I'll talk about this too. This is kind of related to the chops on masculinity and just like needing some kind of outlet for things. I think, especially in the, I'll say like reductionist view on psychology and psychiatry. I think it's easy for us to be very clinical about looking at behaviors. Right, we see aggressive behavior and we immediately categorize them as something we've seen before, and it has helped us scientifically, and it's helped us in other ways. But I think looking at things too clinically and making too gross of assumptions, like things is always bad, like aggressive behavior, I suppose outside of like a sport in which you're competing, is a bad thing. I think it is the wrong way to look at it. In a similar vein, I was thinking about like pain, and I'm not saying there isn't like no one should ever take pain pills for any reason anymore, but I think part of a good life, or, and again, whatever you want that to mean for you, I don't know what that means in your eyes or something. But again, my opinion, I'm of the opinion that some pain is good. Like it is good to have some amount of pain. I remember when I was a kid, and even just every time my dad would have some kind of operation done, like he broke his foot or something like that, he'd have something done, he wouldn't take the pain pill to start that they would give him. Sometimes it was just an anti-inflammatory. It wasn't like it was like a Percocet or something. It wasn't like a strong pain pill. It was like just like a strong, like a naproxen or a pretty strong ibuprofen. But he wouldn't take it, and I was like, why wouldn't you take that? It's like the doctor gave it to you. He told you that you should take it. And he's like, well, I don't see how painful it is. I want to see if I can bear it. And he was a runner and he ran a lot. And part of what running is, just as a sport, is like how much pain can you withstand? There's no point in running around the track. Like you're not like producing energy. You're not doing anything by running around a track, or running 5 miles in, it's some neighborhood, on Thanksgiving. You're not doing anything by doing a turkey trot. You're accomplishing nothing. Like no one cares. You don't have to do any of this. And maybe it's like fun. Maybe some people might actually like enjoy, running around the track, and, I guess they're weird, but whatever, they enjoy that. But part of it is like, just like being in pain. I think it's kind of a good thing sometimes to feel pain. So it shocks me that like anytime anyone has, well, I'm gonna have these pain pills because I'm gonna be hurting. I think it's good to just be like, well, how much? Let me feel it. Let me see how, like, if is it really unbearable? And would it be the worst thing in the world for me to just be in pain for 15 minutes? Like, is it really gonna kill me? Like, is it gonna make that much? I think it's good to have some pain. And there's even some, I guess, some older Soviet literature that and not to make an argument for like masochism, because I don't think it's like it's that cut and dry, but there's a lot of overlap between the pain circuitry in your brain with like your dopamine circuitry, meaning that the pain is correlated on sometimes with pleasure, and this kind of, I guess, argues to my point of this like yin and yang of pain and pleasure, where you're only like as happy as you are sad, and dealing and feeling pain will inevitably make you more resistant to it and happier. And I think that isn't really that's not a crazy conclusion, but I think it's all too easy now to just kind of say, well, to be too reductive and clinical in our thinking and say, well, pain is bad, therefore anything we can do to relieve pain is good. And there's obviously a difference between like chronic, forever pain. Like if you broke every bone in your body, I'm not saying to like go without anti-inflammatories, but like if you roll your ankle, like, really, you can't just like, I mean, I understand like you'll feel better, but is it the point always to feel better? Is it always to have like, is pain always a bad thing? Sometimes it's okay. I think it's fine to be in pain and to live that way and be in pain for a little bit. I don't think it's always this horrible thing. And I think just that's where the clinical view of, I guess, medicine, I guess, falls short of the kind of the philosophical principle of it. Whereas like, are we really just, is our job to just reduce pain no matter what? Or is it to, I guess, help humans? Because the helpful thing to do for a human would be to embrace some amount of pain, like a bearable amount of pain, and use pain pills and anti-inflammatories and things when they're seriously needed, and not just like to make us feel better. And I don't often know. I very rarely take any pills because I think in general you don't need it. You shouldn't take it. But I think even what people need, it's like, well, I have a toothache. I need to take this. It's like, well, maybe just, is it always this, or is it just like you're going to be in pain for a few hours? Like, I think there's a certain like unquestionability there is to like, well, the doctor said to take this. Whereas I think on some level it's probably good for people and us to just be in pain for a little bit, and it's okay if you're inflamed and it's going to be painful and it's going to hurt. Let the body fight it for a second and let you just deal with the fact that you're in pain. It's okay. You're going to be pain. Like in the same way, you're like, it's okay to like just be angry sometimes. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be in pain. It's all right. And like, I don't think the first instinct should be like, well, sadness is bad, therefore you're not allowed to be sad. It's like, no. Okay, sadness, perpetual, forever sadness probably isn't the best thing, right? But the fact that you shouldn't be sad for a couple times, or have a few hours, it's like, you're an idiot. You need to like have some amount of like, there's times to be sad, and it's fine. Take it out, be sad, and kind of deal with it, and that's fine. You'll live. Like, it's not one, like, it's, I think there's a vast difference between like this, like never ending, like agonizing suffering that should be like clinical depression versus like, I'm sad a couple times, or like my life's not perfect, or maybe my expectations on things were too high, when I was a kid, and I kind of oversold this dream to myself, and now I don't have it. Like there's a certain amount, there's a difference between that and like someone who's like medically, his brain just doesn't fire enough, and that's why he's sad. Like there's just a huge difference. And I think, I'm not saying that no one has ever had this clinical depression, but I would argue that like there's a subset, or even just a group, or I guess a category of people that just like, that think there's all pain is bad, all sadness should be rejected, all misery, all anger, all of these like quote unquote negative emotions should be vanquished immediately. And any amount above zero is like, we still need to fight to win that battle. But no, I think there is I think winning the battle is you being okay with it, being sad for a day or two. It's like, oh, it's fine. Some people have bad days. You have bad weeks. Sometimes you have bad months. That's fine. That's life. It's one thing if you're always angry and you're always running around flipping tables and you've never, not had a conversation below 90 decibels. That's one thing. But like the fact you should never get angry about anything is bullshit. You need to be angry sometimes. Like you can't just be this empty vessel, popped up on morphine and SSRIs all the time to never have any emotion of any kind. I think is fucking silly. It's silly. You're just throwing, I don't know. I think it's just overly reductive, or not. You're going backwards in that way. And obviously the people that need to hear this don't think I'm describing them. So I guess that's too bad. But either way, I reject the notion that, holy, anger, sadness, these like quote unquote, like negative emotions or whatever you think are negative emotions are always bad is stupid. Negative emotions are good because they allow good emotions to, because be good. It's fine. So I don't know. I think in general, I'm very wary of things. And I guess it's the most prevalent with like, I don't know, running to medication for things. I think as doctors and as people of medicine, it's people come to you and it's your intention. And I'm not a doctor. It might sound like I'm trying to, but as a doctor, it's your intention to like relieve pain and suffering. But on what level? Like, you're allowed to say just like, well, you have a toothache. Maybe you should just suck it up. Is that, can I say that? And I think, maybe I wouldn't last that long in that profession then, but I think at some points it's like, well, you rolled your ankle, you can have pain pills, but like, I don't think you need them. Just, it's okay. Your body will heal it itself. Okay. You don't have like a complete loss of antibodies. You can still heal your little rolled ankle. And maybe just, you don't need to be hopped up on naproxen for 4 weeks because you rolled an ankle. Just, I don't know what to tell you. But, I think it's so accepted now to just roll into the doctor's office with anything and then get a pill for it and walk away. It's like, really, everything's got to have some pill. I think it's just, I don't know. I disagree with it. And I see this a lot with like the medicine in particular that I really think is bad are I've never taken these, but they're SSRIs, which I don't even know how those made past trial, because I've had friends and people that have taken them, and nobody has actually like long-term gotten better off. No one's ever, you either take them for the rest of your life, or you take them and get off them and have some greater problem. Like you then are addicted to something else, or when it wears off, you just get drunk every night. And so now you're an alcoholic, which that didn't happen before, but now you are. It's like, I just don't think that I think part of the way they work is they almost just kind of zombify your emotions, which I don't think is a healthy way of dealing with them. But I think as a doctor, sometimes it's easier to just be like, well, this person's problems off my pay grade. I don't feel like helping them with their underlying issues that they might have, which might be just like they had like overly ambitious dreams that they wanted to achieve, or they didn't, they have relationships that they fucked up that, kind of haunt them. There's a lot of other times there's other subconscious problems that, people, they show up and they're like, well, I'm depressed. And it's like, well, here's these pills, it'll help you. And the doctor's like, I don't want to deal with this. This is too much. Whereas as the actual helpful thing to do wouldn't be to just give them a pill to make it go away. It'd be to kind of empower or give them tools to help themselves, which is the harder solution, right? It's not an easy thing. And I'm not saying the success rate with that is 100% either, just because, people's strongest ability is that to delude themselves. So it's like you're fighting kind of an uphill battle, making people help themselves. But clinically, I think it's bad practice just to give people pills to make things go away. This shouldn't be the answer. The first inkling to an answer on some kind shouldn't just be like, well, I'll take this pill to go away. It's like that seems wrong on many levels, but especially on the level of like helping people. And it might relieve things in the short term, but then what kind of precedent are you setting that pills solve all your problems? So I don't know. I have a lot of beef with that. I just think it's okay for people to fight their battles. It's okay for people to have demons. I think these are all normal things, right? It's okay to have expectations that are stupid. It's a very normal thing to be grandiose sometimes, especially as a kid. Kind of oversold these dreams that you can be whatever you want, do whatever you want. Whereas that's just not the reality of it. Is that a lot of times you're not really that special, and there's not really much that no one really cares what the fuck you're doing most of the time. You're not no one's watching. No one gives a fuck. Your mom might kind of watch, but she's got her own problems. It's like, I just don't know that. I think people, there's just a lot of deeper problems than like, well, you're sad because you need these pills. It's like, well, 50%, 80% of the population has this inbuilt chemical imbalance. It's like, I think they're just fucked up in the head not because of that. There's no need for these pills. There's other problems, deeper problems that they have to fight themselves. They need to, exit the material world and understand why they think, ask questions of themselves and have difficult conversations with them fucking selves, not with, not complaining about somebody from work. Who cares? So anyway, that's enough of my ramblings for today. I guess I'm sorry if you're very optimistic or bullish on Western medicine, or really just like pills. That's how I categorize it. Western medicine is just, here's a pill, whatever. I think you should be in pain. If you roll your ankle, don't go to the fucking doctor. All right, ice it, but then let it hurt you a little bit. It's fine. You're not going to die. If it's what kills you, you probably should die anyway. If you roll your ankle and it ends up getting infected and dying or something like that, despite having no actual flesh wound, then you probably, never mind. All right, peace out.